So many people go out and want to talk to the person that they imagine is the most powerful. So the leader or the managing director or the CEO, whatever it might be. But you've gone behind the scenes to the person behind the person. So tell me what prompted your interest in the invisible people, the hands, the right hand behind the leader.
Yeah, like the people behind the people. So I guess like I've always been interested in, political dramas. Like I grew up watching The West Wing. And like I always loved the characters like the chief of staff.
Or for that matter, unethical, immoral, or suspect.
Okay, a couple things for you to bear in mind. None of that matters on hard copy.
You're overreacting.
Am I?
And I was working in Canberra at Prime Minister and Cabinet. And it was at a time when Scott Morrison was Prime Minister. And a few of our documents that I'd be working on, there'll be people at it from the Prime Minister's office. And one of them would often be Scott Morrison's Chief of Staff. And that's when I became fascinated by the role because they're, in a way, like as powerful as the world leader they're working for, but we know nothing about them. But then a few years on when I was running my media startup, we got a new follower one day and it was Justin Trudeau's longtime chief of staff, Katie Telford, and we ended up messaging and jumped on a call. And it was just the way she spoke about Justin Trudeau I just found so funny and unique because in a way, they're best friends. And they've been said to communicate via like eye contact alone.
Now, you already have something of a friendship with Katie, but how do you go about reaching out to others and how did you decide?
Yeah.
Well, firstly, how do you find them and how did you decide which ones you wanted?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it came from my own. I think the decisions I ended up making were just dictated by my own personal curiosity, like people who I wanted to know, what that world leader was like. So, like Jacinda Ardern, I wanted to know what it was like working for her. And then just leaders who were in power during defining moments in history, like Tony Blair. Like I wanted to know what it was like the day Princess Diana died from the people who were there. Nelson Mandela. Like I didn't even realize that a lot of his team was still alive and they're like in their late 80s now. So I literally just sent a bunch of emails and heard back like a few months later from most of them. But once I had Katie Telford in, who was an active chief of staff, I think it de-risked it for a lot of them. But I was surprised by the hit rate. And I think it comes down to they're not often asked to give interviews.
And from what I gather, having read your most excellent book, they don't necessarily want to give interviews either because they see their role as being necessarily behind the scenes because they are not elected. And so they do work for the leader, but they're not elected.
Yeah.
And so I guess they have to protect the leader, but also themselves. Have I got that right?
And it's so funny because I've been posting a few like, meet this chief of staff on LinkedIn. And I did one the other day about Raj Nana, Jacinda Ardern's notoriously private chief of staff. And Jacinda's team have commented on my LinkedIn post, being like, Raj would hate this post. Like, we can't believe he did this book.
Was part of your motivation to encourage young women to get involved in politics, either forward-facing or in the back room?
But also, yeah, absolutely. Like, I think I really saw it as a call to action to show everyone really that leadership, kind of expand the remit of leadership and show the roles that are often in the wings and not necessarily on the podium. Men were shocked by the level of misogyny that their bosses faced in the media. Like both said that it even took them back, even though they knew it was going to be bad.
And in so doing, I say to the Leader of the Opposition, I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. I will not. And the government will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny by this man. Not now.
Obviously, Gillard here was the first. So I think Ben, her chief of staff, really was candid about how they would have to really choose when to comment, when to address stuff that was happening in the news that was based on her gender. Whereas Jacinda's team were very much more like they called things out as it happened.
It was interesting to me that, I mean, many of the things that the chiefs of staff have told you are fascinating. And in particular, the smaller things, like the fact that Nelson Mandela used to, because he missed the whole credit card revolution being in prison, used to still carry around a small purse with change to buy fruit and other, the small habits that people had. But there were also moments that I found very difficult to read. So, for example, Ben Hubbard, is that Julia Gillard's chief of staff, had to tell her what was on the misogyny menu. So for listeners who perhaps don't remember, a menu for a fundraiser went around and it described Julia Gillard in the most grotesque terms, and it was meant to be amusing, but it was in fact extremely derogatory. It had become a news story, the fact that this menu was out there, and he had to tell her.
He had to tell her, yeah. And
what was it like talking to them about those kinds of things?
That's where like a lot of them kind of joked in a way and said when there's good news for a world leader, someone's already told them. Like the chief of staff never gets to share the good news. Like it's always the bad news. And I think that's where trust plays such an important role, because you really need to have the trust of your leader to be able to have those difficult conversations, which is pretty much like 90% of the relationship.
Did you go to great lengths to ensure that you had people from across the political spectrum as well as the two?
Yeah. It was really important to me to have people across the political spectrum. It's so interesting just being in the room, like them explaining how that day played out and just hearing about their relationship with the boss rather than the politics.
You also interviewed the chief of staff of a famous dancing prime minister. Tell us about that.
It was fascinating getting her take on that whole, news story about the dancing, because she was kind of like, to me, Finland didn't care. Like it was the media who just ran with it. And like she was saying people would come up to them in the street and be like, we love the video, like we love seeing you dance. But she was just kind of like the media really took it and ran with it.
I was going to say there must have been people who said no, but there must be people that you're still intending to get to say yes that are still on your hit list.
Yeah.
Who are they?
I mean, I've been trying to line up a time with Hillary Clinton's longtime chief of staff, Huma Abedin, who is an incredible woman and has been through a lot with her boss too. And then Susie Wiles is Trump's chief of staff.
And she's the first woman to hold that position.
First woman in the role.
In the White House chief of staff role.
There's so much that I would love to chat to her about, especially even down to like what it was like being chief of staff when Elon was an advisor and how her relationship with Elon, like how that worked. Because in a way, he was also a chief of staff. And also what it's like being the first woman in that role, and then obviously working with Trump, because I think she's said before that they're very different people.